Hi, everyone! Welcome to our channel. Douglas Macgregor alleges that the recent developments are likely orchestrated by a collaboration between mystics and the Central Intelligence Agency. He contends that this is part of a broader narrative embraced by senior military leaders in the United States, Great Britain, and to a lesser extent, Australia and other European powers. The goal, according to Macgregor, is to perpetuate a negative image of Russia and its military. He suggests that there is an effort to downplay the danger of the situation in Ukraine, emphasizing the need to convince Americans and Europeans that Russia is weak and incapable. Gregor believes this tactic is intended to reduce objections to the involvement of military advisors and equipment in the conflict. He believes that you are absolutely correct. There was a moral and professional obligation to truthfully inform people. However, he points out a prevalent issue in the English-speaking world, particularly in the United States. There's a tendency to disparage foreign military forces and their leaders, who we may not know well. Drawing parallels to historical examples, he mentions the erroneous assessments of the Germans before the Normandy landing, where they were portrayed as a failed and incapable army. Similarly, he refers to the misconceptions about the Japanese, citing the fall of Singapore and the surrender of a British army to a smaller Japanese force. He emphasizes the historical disdain and contempt that the United States and Great Britain had for both the Japanese and the Germans, highlighting that such attitudes are not a new phenomenon. And even Europeans who had closer proximity to Russia had a tendency to judge the Russians unfavorably. Frederick the Great, for instance, engaged in such judgment, and it nearly led to the complete destruction of his army on one occasion. Following that incident, the Prussians and Germans in general adopted a different stance. However, historically, the habit of making premature judgments has consistently been an issue. Another aspect to consider is the presence of individuals in the federal bureaucracy and the military who, driven by a desire to advance their own interests, may willingly provide misleading information to their superiors. This occurs because they choose to present information that aligns with what their superiors want to hear. The phenomenon can be likened to the Abilene paradox groupthink situation, where individuals refrain from standing out and instead conform to the collective opinion kin to everyone getting on the bus to a building for a dinner that nobody truly desires. Because those one or two individuals who voiced opposition were promptly ostracized and silenced by the minority who favored intervention. This is a recurring narrative. It exerts a significantly detrimental influence, particularly within the U.S. military, federal bureaucracy, and likely in the intelligence community. At the outset of the war, the Russians had around 190,000 troops prepared for potential intervention in Ukraine. However, only 90,000 were initially deployed. As previously discussed, there was a belief on Putin's part that this would signal Russia's resistance to the perceived threat of Ukraine becoming a platform for hostile military power projection from the United States and NATO. Contrary to his expectations, there was no inclination for negotiation or compromise, and the rest is now history. This transitioned the Russian military from a force evidently too small for its assigned mission to one that has significantly grown in both size and capability over the past year. Where is the evidence supporting the notion of a dire intent to conquer Eastern Europe before this conflict? Notably, the Russians have maintained defensive positions around the territories they secured for months, holding the initiative for at least 6 months. There has been no apparent impediment to the Russians launching an attack. The prevailing explanation from those within the administration and elsewhere is that the Russians are inept and incapable of executing such an assault. However, this notion is deemed ridiculous as the Russians have been overpowering the Ukrainians consistently. Each time the Ukrainians expose themselves, they face annihilation. The real reason behind the lack of a full-scale attack, in his view, is that Putin is reluctant to advance further unless absolutely necessary. The concerning development is that the Russians have recently completed an additional 200 to 300 rail lines into eastern Ukraine, primarily for logistical purposes. This suggests genuine preparations for a potentially massive offensive towards the West. Despite Putin's belief that he can secure a negotiated settlement or anticipate the economic exhaustion of the opposition, the speaker contends that it won't be as straightforward as Putin imagines. It's essential to bear in mind that the standards for individuals admitted to the senior ranks of intelligence organizations are significantly higher than those for general officers. When it comes to general officers, it's more of a hit or miss situation. Speaker 1, 5, 26. While there are few who are genuinely intelligent and well-read, like General MacArthur, who dedicated 2 hours every night throughout the Second World War to reading material he deemed relevant. Additionally, MacArthur personally cleared out his inbox daily, reading all the material and writing reports. Presently, there is a lack of individuals with the capability to engage in such practices. Let's revisit the extravagant predictions and the celebratory narrative that dominated Western media for months. I recall being criticized back in February, early March, when I asserted that the man in question was little more than an empty facade, perhaps even an actor. It was Jennifer Griffin and a Fox News colleague, a former congressman whose name escapes me, who vehemently defended him, portraying him as a heroic figure akin to Churchill. This was all absurd and has been so from the beginning. The truth is, we aren't entirely certain who's truly in control in Ukraine, just as we aren't certain here in Washington. However, the conduct of this individual over the past year and a half is simply atrocious. He has recklessly sent tens of thousands of his countrymen to their deaths. Fully aware from the start that victory was impossible, he insisted on sending them against impregnable Russian defenses repeatedly. There seems to be no political rationale justifying these actions. In my view, this individual is being exposed. And I resonate with Elon Musk's comment that every few minutes he opens his mouth seeking another $1 billion from the United States. The destination of these funds remains unknown, much like the path of the equipment. The entire situation is nothing short of a fiasco and a scandal. Keep in mind that everyone within the military, from the officer course to the military side, is somehow entangled in corruption. Battalion commanders are embezzling the salaries of soldiers who served under them, and now, unfortunately, lost their lives in act. This prevents their widows from receiving compensation from the Ukrainian government. The corruption in Ukraine surpasses even that of Mexico, which says a lot if you've experienced Mexico. On the matter of the defector, Solon said, "I have no doubt that privately he has spoken the truth. However, it seems he has been ignored, told to be silent, and potentially even coerced to comply at gunpoint. Regardless, at this point, it might not make much difference, because at crucial levels within the Ukrainian army, there are numerous foreign elements orchestrating operations from various locations and pushing the Ukrainians into action. The pervasive distrust between the soldiers on the front lines and the commanding officers has led to squads being reduced to 3 or 4 men, preventing the formation of larger units that might rebel against the leadership. The situation is dire, and people are systematically being fed into what is metaphorically termed the meat grinder. Surrenders have been occurring over the past months, evident in video footage, and this trend may persist or even worsen over time. It's tragic that we continue to financially support this, effectively treating Ukraine as if it's the 51st state. Senator Rand Paul's argument holds weight. We fund the salaries of the government, bureaucracy, and military in Ukraine, and it's becoming increasingly absurd on NATO. It's a straightforward truth that everyone does as they're told. Let's be candid. We exert dominance over NATO. NATO essentially serves as an extension of our military power and reinforces our influence on the continent. European nations, to a considerable extent, have positioned themselves as satellite states within the greater U.S. empire and military hegemony. Furthermore, a significant number of senior officers, especially from Great Britain and to some extent from Germany and France, are willing to staunchly defend and execute whatever directives they receive from the United States. They have essentially been assimilated into what one might metaphorically term the Borg. In other words, they adopt our viewpoints, thoughts, and tactics. While there are few dissenting voices, they tend to be silenced. There are individuals within these ranks who know better. For instance, General Client, a retired 4-star German officer, has spoken out against perceived foolishness, emphasizing Russia's standing as a great power.